What's up, YouTube? We are back. Welcome to the channel. We're doing another consult style Q&A for the people. As always, this video is brought to you by NutriBio Supplements, Crystals Bikinis for all your trunk and suit competition needs, and BioLongevity Labs, the most reliable peptide company in the US. All my codes for those companies will be in the description box. I'm going to dive right into it. Could you list some mistakes people make to avoid sabotaging your growing phase? So I think a big one um, in terms of sabotaging your body composition, insulin sensitivity, the overall runway or amount of time and weight you can gain in a growing phase or a bulk, off season, whatever you want to call it. I think people overdo the cheat meals. I'm not saying that you can't go do one once a week, but you don't need to eat like you're going to the chair or like food is going out of stock. Um, we see it all the time. I see it all the time. If you have a cheat meal that's so big that, you know, a normal person would qualify it as a binge, let's say, and I'm talking probably anything more than like 2,000 calories, to put a number on it loosely, you are pretty much trashing your blood sugar and insulin sensitivity for the entire next day. So let's say you go out and have, you know, half the Cheesecake Factory menu and, you know, one of these 2,000 calorie pieces of cake to finish off the meal as your last meal. And then you come home, you go to bed, and you wake up, your blood sugar is probably 120 or 130 fasted, especially if you took your GH the night before. And then you're just going to go back to your plan, you know, especially like, you know, training day, carbs are included. I think that makes you way more prone to store body fat. And it also, from a coaching perspective, kind of skews what the baseline plan is doing. Like, you know, all week, if you're hovering around the same weight or, you know, maybe a half a pound of a trend up most of the week, and then you go eat big and you wake up the following day and you're up 4.5 pounds, it's kind of tough to say what just a continued successful week on the plan would have done. And then also it's like, well, now if this person is going to do this every week, I don't really have any room to increase the baseline plan. They're eating up the majority of the surplus I want them to have in this one single meal, which is just not good. I think also from what I've seen, I do think splitting your GH, if you're running a bodybuilding dose, into multiple shots spread out all throughout the day is going to create insulin resistance. And in extreme cases, it's going to make you eventually diabetic. There's acute, meaning pretty immediate, but also temporary insulin resistance from growth hormone administration. So if you are doing 3 or 4 shots across the day, you're just insulin resistant all day. So that is why the logic to me has always been, if you're growing and, you know, eating a lot of carbs throughout the day, I can't afford to be insulin resistant all day when I'm putting down 5, 6, 7, 800 grams of carbs. So the logic of taking it all before bed, when you're going to be going, like I get 8 hours of sleep, I'm going to be fasted for probably 10 hours when you include, I get my last meal in probably 2 hours before bed. Then I go sleep for 8 hours. I'm in bed for probably 9 hours. And then I wake up and I'm going to do a morning cardio or walk. And so I probably have anywhere from 12 to 14 hours that I'm fasted. And then that's the window that I'm taking this bolus dose of GH. So I'm going to get all of those benefits. And I don't care if my blood sugar is temporarily spiked at that time, because there's nothing else compounding on top of it in terms of food or carbohydrates. So those are two things I think people can just immediately clean up that would improve their off-season growing. I also think cycle design based on what your favorite influencer or educator or what the popular thing on TikTok is right now is just a major mistake. The longer I do this, every single day I have something that comes to my desk as a coach that makes me smile and shake my head. And I will just say to myself, we are all so different. The response that we all get from every single individual aspect or drug in bodybuilding is wildly different. 30 milligrams a day of testosterone might put someone perfectly normal for TRT. It might put someone at 200 nanograms per deciliter for total testosterone. It might make somebody aromatase crazy. It might, it might not require an aromatase inhibitor. So I think you really need to find what works best for you. And if you have a gut feeling about the way a protocol or a drug reacts with your body, you need to act on that. Because for a long time, I forced cycle design that doesn't fit my body. And I just dealt with the side effects and lack of progress, really. And I just think that when you figure out what works for you individually, it doesn't matter what it says on a Reddit forum or what it says on J3 University or Anabolic Bodybuilding or what Kurt Havens said on YouTube. Like, none of it matters. You are, I see this referenced a lot. N equals one, meaning you are an entirely unique, one of one type individual experiment. So no one can tell you that you should be doing this or shouldn't be doing this. Best advice before beginning first prep and going into the first show. Number one, hire a coach and listen to everything that coach says. Don't field outside opinions about the plan. Don't even really, I think it would save people a lot of mental stress to even ask outsiders for opinions on how you look, sending pictures to all different people. Man, I have learned to keep it a very tight circle. My entire prep, other than every now and then as I get closer to the show, and I'm excited about how I'm looking, I'll put some up on Instagram. And even so, I take the critiques and the praise the same way. If I wouldn't take advice from you, it doesn't hold much weight. There's people that have gotten on my photos and said that I look awesome. And then there's people that have gotten on my photos and said that I look shit. So if I wouldn't take advice from you or respect your opinion enough, I just don't care. So I would just try to drown out the noise, listen to the coach, do everything that they say. And the other piece of advice would be to be with that coach for an extended period of time before you actually get into a first prep. Give that coach the opportunity to grow you during the off season, and he'll learn your response. He'll learn your psychology. He'll learn what drugs work best for you. He'll know what type of training you can handle, what needs to come up. And then it makes transitioning into contest prep very smooth. It's not like he's trying to learn you on the fly. And then otherwise, I would go into it with zero expectations. I would hold yourself to high standards in terms of going the extra mile. That doesn't mean do extra cardio. That doesn't mean remove food from your plan that your coach thinks that you're eating. I mean, in terms of doing your mobility and foam rolling for however much you think you need to practice posing, do it twice over. One piece of advice I would give is finding the prejudging video on YouTube of an NPC show specifically. Ideally a local show, because if you find a video of a national level show, the judging and how long the rounds are definitely up at a level that you're not at yet. So if you can find a local show's prejudging video on YouTube and play that to practice to, so that you hear the head judge and you get used to hearing the crowd and the excitement, and you're kind of practicing at game speed, I think that will help you big time. And then otherwise, I would just enjoy the process and remember that you chose to do this. Don't be a dickhead to the people in your life. Don't let things drop. Don't quit your job to pursue bodybuilding or any of these other things. Like, it's just your first show. Just do your best. It's the best that you're ever going to look. Hold yourself to a high standard and understand you chose to do something really extreme, and enjoy the process. Go into show day and really the final week as little stress as possible. If you work a job, try to get at least Thursday and Friday off before the show. And that's really the best advice I could give you in terms of being a beginner. How to combat high dose GH lethargy? You don't. This is one of the costs of just being big and getting bigger and eating a lot of food, and part of what comes with using high GH. It's pretty limited in terms of side effects and risk, but this is something that does happen. I mean, especially if you're pushing food. I've never found it to be unbearable, but when you're pushing higher doses of GH, higher doses of anabolics, pushing tons and tons of food, walking around and carrying like a new high body weight, it's uncomfortable. It's not supposed to be easy, especially if you want extreme results. Like if you want to be a freak of a bodybuilder or put on 15 pounds of muscle tissue for the stage within a year, like it's uncomfortable. Biggest or most common contest prep mistakes that you see that I can avoid? Kind of talked about this, is kind of similar to the first prep question, but in terms of mistakes to avoid, I would say you don't want to force a short prep. Give yourself plenty of time. If you are an advanced or experienced competitor and you have like a track record of getting ready exceptionally early, I prefer 18 to 20 weeks. At some point, almost everyone gets sick and you lose a week. And then when you're talking about peak week, if you're doing it correctly, peak week is not for fat loss. Peak week is for modulating fullness and finding the balance between peeled and full. So whatever amount of weeks you choose, you basically can subtract 2 from them, and that's how many productive weeks you're going to have in prep. So even 18, when you think about it like that, is really 16 weeks of productive fat loss. And even that feels a little fast for me, depending on the person. So I like 20 weeks. Mistakes to avoid, getting other people's opinions. We talked about this. Yeah, that's really the big thing, is just the timeline. The stage is always there. If you diet for 19 weeks and you're still not ready, don't kid yourself. Diet for another 4 weeks and find another show. Best cues or thought process for back training. It's my weakest body part. Okay, I think if you're not already doing this, it will definitely level up your thought process and approach if you separate your training in 2 categories, or let's say 3 categories. First category being upper back training. A lot of times I prefer chest supported machines for this. And then these are going to be kind of your grip and rip movements where a little body English is okay. Heavier weights and a lower bodybuilding rep range is okay. And that cueing is going to be, elbows flared out from your side, and you want to drive your elbows as far back as possible. I typically will do like both, like a bilateral movement, both arms at once. I'm not doing like really any single arm upper back movements. So you think about like your chest supported T-bar row is always my favorite type of movement. So you have your like humbler Arsenal row, or any of the prime rows, whether it's like the seated or the extreme row, anything like that. Those are going to be your bread and butter. And upper back pull down is good as well. The next category is going to be training your lats. And unless you are a total beginner and you have a limited amount of muscle mass on you, I prefer training lats unilaterally, one side at a time, because I kind of need to tilt my torso off to the side that I'm training to get a fully shortened lower lat. And the cueing for that should be elbow as tight to your side as possible. The inner part of your elbow should be scraping along your torso. And the range of motion is going to be shorter. You shouldn't be rowing or pulling down with your elbow going behind or beyond your torso. It should be thought about like you are dragging the inside of your elbow right to your hip. And then I guess the third category would be like hinges, whether or not you want to put that in with back or legs. But I think an RDL or a good morning is always going to be good. And that's it. That's really it. Those are in terms of like without seeing your training and being able to give specific advice in terms of the thought process. That's how you should be thinking about upper back training, or back training in general, excuse me. What should be the first exposure to PEDs? Should it include test, growth hormone, and insulin? I think first exposure is just tried and true with testosterone, unless you have a good coach and they see or recognize, let's say, like you, in my example, I had puberty driven gynecomastia before I ever went on steroids. Looking back at that, I didn't have a coach. I did it all on my own. Knowing that, I probably, instead of 500 milligrams of test, an AI, I probably would have done maybe 250 test, 250 mast, or 250 test, 250 primo, something like that. Kind of split it up to help that predisposition to aromatize. Or even if you start and you're 4 weeks in and you feel like, man, my nipples are puffy, they're sensitive, you can change the cycle design. I would at that point keep the same milligram total and bias it more towards DHTs. Like if you see that and you need to make an adjustment, I would probably even lean towards DHTs, like maybe 300 mass, 200 tests, something like that. In terms of growth and insulin with a first cycle, it depends on how locked in this person is with their diet, with their training, what their goals are. Like if you have somebody that's trained for 3 or 4 years and like even without a coach or anything, they are on their fucking diet all the time. They are on their diet. They know how to train hard. I don't need them to know biomechanics. I need them to train hard. And they come to you and they're like, man, I want to take competitive bodybuilding as high as I can. Let's say then it goes without saying that they're going to need a pretty good budget. Like, and this is not going to really put a financial stress on them. I could see GH being in. And at that point, it does like kind of the synergy kind of makes the gear go a little bit further. And then, I've heard people say that this is GH is something that you should save for down the line. And that was the way that I did it. But I think looking back, I could have brought GH in sooner and kept my gear doses more moderate. Now, I think I made the mistake in my early and intermediate days of not running GH and only running like lower dose gear. If I'm just being honest, I think I left a lot of progress on the table, especially knowing here years later how good my health genetics are. So I think it's context dependent. It's not a terrible idea. I would hold off on the insulin regardless of the situation. That doesn't need to be in right away. And especially when I think first exposure, I think of someone that is just green and inexperienced. And insulin is very safe and very easy to use. But also, if you fuck it up, it can be life-threatening. So I don't think it's worth it. You have your whole bodybuilding career and PED use in front of you. Let's see what we can get, especially like if you're going to have some GH in, let's say you're going to do 400 or 500 milligrams of gear and something like 5 IUs of GH. Man, let's see how much we can get out of that for 20 weeks. I mean, that is probably for someone that's really on their diet already and knows how to train hard, they are going to explode from that. GH kit ended, so I started a different brand. Immediately got carpal tunnel. Was the prior stuff bunk? Probably. If you are running the same dosage, right, and you're on brand X and you're running 10 IUs and you have no side effects, no hand numbness, no swelling, nothing, and then that kit runs out and then you open a kit and start a kit of brand Z and run the same 10 IUs and immediately you have lava hands, yeah, I would say either the prior stuff was bunk or this new stuff is way more potent one way or another. And that would lead me to the point of test, don't guess. I am amazed at how many serious either bodybuilders or PED users I see and hear about online that their only form of assuring that they are using a quality growth hormone product is, bro, trust me. Like, I do all my own testing, man, and I can't recommend it enough. I am never, it's just too crucial to me. I'm spending a lot of money on this, and I'm also putting a lot of, it would take a lot of faith. Like I'm really relying on this product to drive a lot of the return that I'm hoping to get. So I can't afford 8 or 10 weeks on bullshit fake product. So I will pay for the testing every single kit that I get. I send out a sample of it and then I get a report and it shows me how many IUs are in each bottle, what the purity is, and then whether or not there's dimer content in it, meaning it would potentially skew the amount of IUs. So you have to test. And even on some of these forums or boards, you know, people will reference tests that the source themselves put up. And it's like, guys, do you not realize this could be total bullshit? If I'm a source and I'm selling GH and I'm on Pro Muscle Forum, I could send one sample of the best stuff that I can find off to get tested, get that report, post it, and say, order from me. I have the best stuff. Now you send me your money and order from me, and I send you a vial of baby powder. And guess what? You're fucked. But you think that you're on GH, and you're not. So I just can't recommend it enough. Either you have to have someone that personally does the testing that you trust, a coach, a friend, something like that, or you have to do it yourself. You got to fork up the money and do it yourself. And it's not cheap, but also, man, the way that I balance it in my mind is I'm getting crazy return value from buying generics. And then when I fork up the money and pay to test them, and it shows me that these generics are just as good, if not better in some cases in terms of purity and IU content than pharmacy, it's like, man, it all evens out. Like I'm happy to pay the cost. So again, and then people want to reference blood work, guys. IGF serum means zero for the product quality of your growth hormone. There have been tons of people over and over and over that have run 18 IUs of Serostim GH from the pharmacy, and their IGF comes back normal. That is a matter of what is in the blood. It's not a matter of what's actually happening. It has no bearing on whether the product is real and whether or not you're growing. So the only thing that you can do to assure that it's a good product, like I said, is lab testing that either you do personally or someone that you personally know. Not, hey, my buddy knows a guy that did this, or the source ran this. No, it's first contact, someone that you know. What did you do different to improve as much from your last season? It wasn't really a matter of doing much different. I think it was just another year of doing all the same stuff. I live like a bodybuilder all year for many years. I would say my dosing in terms of anabolics was similar to what I started running higher competitive bodybuilding dosages of both anabolics and growth hormone when I started with Justin Harris in about April of 2023. So about 2.5 years now. And it's all been pretty similar, maybe titrated up a little bit, but all, for the most part, in terms of the actual off season, it's somewhere between 2 and 2.5 grams. I think I got a little bit more for like the final 4 weeks of my actual off season. It might've been like 2,800 mgs of injectables. I had, for all that time period, including last year, I stuck between 8 to 10 IUs of GH per day, all before bed. That's really what I could handle. I tried more. I couldn't handle more with the carpal tunnel and how much like water retention and body weight and food and everything. I just couldn't handle it. I'm going to try more this year and I have some different solutions to help manage those side effects. I would say, if one thing stood out to me, how did I improve so much? So I dieted for basically 10 months or 11 months, from the end of 23 all the way up until August of 24. So by the end, I was like, pretty withered on stage and what I would say was just over dieted. So then that set up an opportunity to have a really good post-show rebound, which would lead to a really successful offseason. And then I really took advantage of that by treating it like contest prep for the first time ever. I ate Saturday night after the show. I ate Sunday after the show. And then once Monday came, I think I did 7 straight weeks without an untracked meal. I didn't go out to eat. I didn't have snacks. I didn't pick at food. Every single thing. I would use some different food sources. My girlfriend would, I'd have, let's say, 80 grams of carbs from rice, 8 ounces of ground beef. And my fiance would then make me like a couple burritos then instead, where the macros are exactly the same. Or, at one point of the rebound last year, my breakfast was enormous. I think it was like 160 grams of dry cream of rice and 4 English muffins or something. And then so like, Saturday morning before legs, I would take the same macros. I would write everything out for my fiance. And then with the numbers I gave her, she would make me a plate of pancakes and I'd have a whey shake or something like that. But in terms of like untracked food, even picking at snacks or going out to eat, I went 7 straight weeks immediately after the show, like it was contest prep. And I went from, so I ended up doing the rebound for 9 full weeks. I did 7 straight weeks without a cheat meal. At week 7, my girlfriend or my fiance and I went out to eat once, and then the following week we went out again. So, the final 2 weeks I did 1 meal a week off. In that 9 weeks, I went from 209 to 263, and it looked pretty good. Then I had a cruise where I brought training down to 4 days a week to kind of help manage my recovery. But those 4 days, I didn't treat it like I was on a cruise because I had an extra day of rest. I just continued to train like I had been. And I think that held a lot of that size that I had built during the rebound. And then I did a 10-week off season where I got up to 278. And I think being that it was a little bit of like a shorter, I would typically say anywhere from 16 to 20 weeks is a good off-season push. By only doing 10, although the weight gain was quite a bit, it kept me pretty lean. The year prior, I had done a 3-year off-season, and I think that was a mistake in terms of staying heavy and holding high levels of body fat for an extended period of time. It was like my body reset itself to that, whereas this time only the 10-week off-season and then cruised and then back to prep. I think that was all a big part, but I think just nailing the post-show rebound is where it all starts and ends. And then so this year I even took it a step further. So I ate Saturday after the show, I ate Sunday, and then beginning with my last, we did like dessert and snacks after dinner on Sunday. So ending with that was around 8 or 9. I did a 24-hour fast. I did cardio. I did the sauna. I had 1 meal before bed on Monday. But then Tuesday, I woke up and I was only 4 pounds up from what my stage weight was, not even what my morning weight was. So I basically used that Monday. If you're going to have like a celebration weekend of eating after the show, using that Monday then as like a reset. So I'm not just piling food on top of, like I talked about earlier, the crazy skewed high blood sugar and probably high blood pressure from eating a lot Sunday. I used that Monday as a reset, and then it was almost like I began my rebound from the same place that I would have if I would have just continued my contest prep diet. And so that's something I'll look to implement with clients moving forward as well, besides just myself. But I'm stoked. I'm going to talk about that in the rebound series. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think this rebound will be even better. And people next year will be asking me what I did to make another big leap in progress. On a rebound, where should calories start? Should you go back to your 2 to 3 week out diet or maintenance? Number one, were you fucking peeled or not? If you, as a enhanced male competitor, did not have hard striated glutes and hamstrings, no body fat left on your lower back or love handles, you're probably going to want to be pretty conservative with where you start your rebound and how you approach it. Like you're not going to have a big rebound because you didn't earn it with the diet. It's not going to be as dramatic, and it's going to be, you're going to need to take it slower because you don't have as much runway. When you're crazy sliced, I mean, I talked about it last year. I was small and withered, but I was peeled, and I went from 209 to 263 and was still in great shape. So we're talking about 54 pounds without getting fat. If you are not peeled at your show or at the end of your diet, like peeled, you don't have that much runway. You might only have another 20 pounds before you're fat again. So that's number one. Where are you peeled? I think a secondary consideration is, if you were peeled, how long were you peeled for? Like, did it just come together in the final week for you, or were you ready like I was this year at 5 weeks out, and then you're just kind of holding that level of conditioning? Um, Also, then a huge consideration is, how big are you? So if you are 170 pounds on stage, the amount of calories that you're starting with, or carbs, um, is going to be much less than somebody that was 220 on stage. So that's another consideration. And then in terms of how aggressive you can be with food, a part of that will be, are you staying on, is your health good enough, and are you um, risk tolerant enough to stay on some anabolics for a rebound, or are you going into like a cruise health phase, and then it's, again, that's an even slower reverse, I think. So it just depends. Hopefully that gives, instead of just a hard answer, that gives you the thought process to make your own decision. I think in general, um, this guy asked, back to your 2 or 3 week out diet. If you were sliced and you have a decent amount of muscle on you, and let's say you were ready at 2 weeks out, like perfect world in every aspect, um, I would say probably more than what you were eating at 2 or 3 weeks out. Um, I would set up a diet that, let's say, has 6 meals. I would make sure 5 of them have carbs, a pretty good amount of carbs, but probably an even amount of carbs, at least early on. You don't necessarily want like a wild swing around the training window, and then like a huge drop off or anything. I would maybe just stick, let's say you were doing 100 grams of carbs on a day for your hard push. Um, do a diet with 6 meals, 5 of them have carbs, and it's 60 grams of carbs per meal. And then I always like that final meal to be more protein, fat, and then remove the carbs. I think that is also another tactic, especially pushing food, pushing GH, to set up a better insulin sensitivity in the morning. All right, guys, final one. I'm ended up being a little bit more long-winded than I expected. How do you view AI use, aromatase inhibitor use, throughout a prep and also through the peak week? Do you crash E2? So I am in an interesting position because I obviously came from a group that pushes like the safer use model that doesn't include aromatase inhibitors under any circumstance. So I myself have done preps where I did no aromatase inhibitors, and then I've helped people that I've put them through preps where they use no aromatase inhibitors. And then I've done the more traditional route, and that was what I did this most recent time. I had testosterone as like the main driver for my most recent cycle, where I was using a gram of test, 1 milligram of Arimidex twice a week early on. As the show neared, I went to 3 times a week. And then the final week, yes, I absolutely crashed it. I used 2.5 milligrams of letrozole every day, starting Monday before the show. I did high Winstrol, high Proviron, and it was the nastiest look of my life. And I have to give credit to AJ Sims. That was where I got really that idea. I talked through it with my coach, Justin Compton, and we decided on that. And it brought the nastiest peak of my life thus far, like I said. And there was no loss of fullness. I didn't pull out testosterone. I didn't pull out GH. I literally did both of them the night before the show. So, going back to the question in terms of like throughout prep, when I reflect on my preps and the people that I helped where we did not use aromatase inhibitors the entire time, I absolutely think it was a mistake. I absolutely think the person would have lost body fat at a better rate. And I think they would have looked leaner and drier on stage had we used them, especially not only throughout, but then like ramp them up the final week. So, having high E2 might be beneficial for growing. It depends on what compounds you're using and how E2 synergizes with the cycle design. But I don't ever think contest prep, I don't think it makes a ton of sense when I reflect on having pretty extensive experience, both personal and coaching, in both aspects. I personally won't ever be doing like non or no aromatase inhibitors in contest prep, either for myself or for my clients. It does make a big difference. I also think then it allows you to, again, have testosterone as a main driver, which will keep fullness and training performance and like overall feeling of well-being in a better spot throughout the whole prep. So, all right, guys, that's everything. That 40 minutes went by pretty quick. Thanks to everybody that follows along. Keep your eyes peeled, guys. I think we are going to be doing a Tampa Pro preview with Austin and Josh. That'll be up probably tomorrow night. And then I'm going to be in the VIP section, probably a couple rows back of the Tampa prejudging. So I may personally just do a recap video of what I saw. And then either Sunday or Monday, you guys can expect episode 2 of Project Super Heavy, the Rebound series. So thanks again to everybody that follows along, supports, anyone that leaves a comment, even if it's literally just like an emoji for the algorithm. I appreciate it greatly. That means a lot to a small channel like mine. And until next time, guys, I am out.